If you're here, join us. Comments below to let us know where you are from. We have Pree today with us. I'm going to make sure I add you first on Instagram before I introduce you. Welcome, the loneliness coach. And Maurice D. Okay. And we're also on YouTube, by the way. We're live on YouTube too. Yeah. Hi, everyone, for joining. We're going to talk about body image today, so that'll be great. So I'm just waiting for Pree to be visible so that I can have her on. It takes a little bit of time. But I'm going to just start talking. And so basically, body image is a huge issue for most people in any society, but especially prevalent, I guess, in Asian American experience. We have our own nuances that we have to navigate. So today we're going to talk about that. And so my personal experience is that I am an East Asian Canadian, so born in Hong Kong and then came to Canada when I was 13. So my experience would be a bit different from Pree. So I'm still waiting for you. Hi, Mirinda. For some reason, I still don't see you on Instagram, though.
Yeah, I'm not sure why.
And Julianne, I see her there. It takes a bit of time. I'll let it run. But because I don't want to really introduce you until I see your face. So I'm like,
I'm not sure why it's taking this long.
It'll take a little bit of time, but well, you know what? I'm just gonna introduce you.
Okay.
And then when they see your beautiful face, they'll be like, "Oh." So yeah, Pree is hi, Julianne. Pree is born in Oklahoma in the United States, and then she grew up mostly in North California, and then later moved to LA, and now she lives in Milan.
Yeah.
And you had your PhD in what is it called? Biology, nutrition, right?
Yeah, well, biology of aging is like the actual title, but a lot of my work was involving aging and nutrition type therapy as a treatment for the disease. So
cool. Nice. Yeah. And then now you're doing like cancer immunology, right?
Yeah, it's like a completely different field, but the opportunity just kind of showed up and I was like, all right, this is perfect. I'll get to live in Italy for a while, so why not?
Yeah, that's amazing. Great. Okay, I still don't see you for some reason. I see a lot of people here though. Marie.
Yeah.
And
going on.
I see Jessie too, but like I don't see you. I was like, what's going on? Maybe try refreshing. I don't know if that works.
Yeah,
I know.
Okay, let's see.
Thank you for your patience, guys. Yeah, no worries. I know, technology, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're thank you, Jessie. Yeah, we're trying to see her and on the live, and she's for some reason not there, so I can't invite her.
I know.
Yeah, but she's on Facebook with us. Yeah, I know, it's too bad, but okay. We might have to pivot if this is the case, because I don't think we can keep going for a long time without.
Do you want to try restarting the IG live?
Sure. Yeah, I'm going to try restarting the IG live. Sorry, guys, and then see. Hopefully that works. Okay, just going to end it. Okay.
Oh, are you on Unconventional Asians?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was
Okay. Okay, there we go. Let's try it again.
There we go.
Awesome. Okay, good that you asked. It's like, what?
All right.
Oh, there you are.
There we go.
Yay! There you are. Sorry, there's like so many accounts. Sometimes it's confusing.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yay. Okay, we're connecting on Instagram.
Yay.
Yeah, and I hear you. Woohoo!
Yay, awesome.
Great. Thank you for your patience. I will tell you exactly where to start in the replay. Okay, so I'm just going to reintroduce you, Pree. And
Okay, yeah.
okay, Priya is your name, but then you go by Pree, right?
Yeah.
And yes, so she is currently living in Milan, born in Oklahoma, grew up in California, later moved to LA, and super unconventional, very cool. She is a cancer immunologist, but have been very fascinated with food.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I think like food and our body image sometimes goes hand in hand, so we're going to
Right.
talk about that today. There's a lot of pressure, especially for women, to look a certain way. I mean general in society to look a certain way, but then we have specific nuances that we have to battle with as an Asian American. So we're going to start off with talking about our own experience. And thank you so much for everybody for joining again on Instagram. We have 5 people. Yay! Thank you for your patience. And we have 2 on Facebook. So say hi in the comments. Yeah, so in terms of body image, I will talk about like our experiences, what we had to go through, so that you have an idea of what's happening in our heads, at least, right? Hi, Julie. Love the smiley face, the heart eyes. So with me, okay, so I'm gonna be like super candid. I've never told anybody this before, by the way. So this is gonna be like a live, like very vulnerable thing that I do. There's 3 things that I had issues with in terms of my body image. So the first thing was my weight. So I look skinny, I am skinny, but then I battled with an eating disorder when I was younger. So it was about 3 years, I would say, like at the end of high school, almost to like the first 2 years of university. I won't name names or blame anybody for why it happened, but there's a lot of pressure for me to look a certain way to go under 100 pounds. That was kind of like the ideals, and going back and forth between like starving myself to exercising like extensively and then binging on junk food and just that whole cycle back and forth, right? I got so obsessed to a point that I did kinesiology as my degree. So exercise science, and also nutrition on the side. So I definitely resonate with you, Pree, for that. So then later on, this is the juicy part, because I had no boobs, like I wasn't born with boobs. So I did the breast augmentation.
Okay.
And then I actually even went to China to do it. And at the time, there was this injection that you can take that you just go straight into your body. And even China banned it 3 months later.
Oh my God.
After my surgery. And so that says a lot. And the thing is, the surgeon herself did it. So I was like, oh, if she did it herself, we'll be safe, right? For 10 years, it was safe. And then, of course, right? And so I was like, okay, what can I do? And then after a few years, I took them out and then re-implanted, because pretty much they had to take out 90% of my tissue, like of the substance, and then along with some of my tissue. So I have to kind of like, redo it. So not something that I'm proud of at all, because I was just very insecure in my body. But then I've done what I've done, so I can only enjoy it now.
Yeah.
So definitely not something that I would advocate at all, because if I were to redo it, I wouldn't do it, right? It's just more on working on my self-worth and self-love. But then sometimes, like, or at the time, I needed to go through that experience to understand that today. So that's like one part, the body image part. There's also the skin issue. I had a lot of acne, not when I was an adolescent. I had it after my honeymoon with my ex-husband. I was like breaking out like crazy for like 3 years. And because I had perfect skin, this to me, it's like devastating. And so I did many, many things in terms of like lasers, like or some fillers even into my face, just trying to fix it, right? And I realized through all this journey of trying to fix my body looking a certain way, it really comes down to mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Of like that self-love and self-acceptance. And interestingly, when I could actually be okay with my body for whatever it looks like, my weight actually comes off. I can actually eat whatever I like, which I mean, in general, I am pretty healthy anyways. But being obsessed with the thought of like, I have to like control myself and restrict myself, I could go for, you know, maybe a few months, but then I fall off the wagon. I feel guilty. I feel shamed. And that it's not a long-term sustainable process. And it's not even healthy for you anyways. Like, why are you doing it in the first place, right? So that's kind of my story in terms of body image, so that you guys know. And yeah, so, and how about you, Pree? Like, what was your experience like?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the stuff that you were saying is like very similar to my kind of timeline. Yeah, I first developed my eating disorder towards the end of high school as well. And I would say pretty much a lot of things I would say looking back would have been really like triggering for that. One of the, I think the biggest things was basically my home life. I have a mother who is not officially diagnosed, but we believe has schizophrenia and OCD just based on her symptoms and her behaviors. And so kind of going through high school and adolescence and kind of having to, I guess, interact with her and kind of figure out how to not get on her bad side or not trigger her, really got to me mentally as well, because it was like I have no control over my own behavior or ways to like be in my own home. So what can I do to feel in control? So I definitely think that was a huge kind of trigger for the initiation of my eating disorder, as well as just like the normal usual things in high school, like, you know, your senior year, you're trying to like apply for all these colleges, you have all this pressure for all your classes and trying to get like all these grades so that you get to that college, and basically just all those. And I mean, and not all high schoolers go through that, but if you're a South Asian Daisy girl, like the pressure is on, the heat is on, like your parents are on you to like be the best you can be. So I think that was definitely also a trigger as well. And so kind of basically going through the end of high school.
Sorry, I think you froze on Instagram.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, there we're back.
Yeah, so okay, yeah. Yeah, so I kind of went through my undergrad years pretty much consumed by my eating disorder. I went to a college not too far from home, so I was able to commute, but at the same time, I wasn't able to really make a lot of close friends or forge relationships. I was just so consumed by food, like literally food was my friend. Like I was just controlled by how many calories I'm eating, how like my exercise, like literally figuring out how many calories I burned by walking or how many calories I burned just like, you know, sitting around all day and like trying to literally match it to T. So I would say that really consumed my undergrad years. And then it wasn't really until I started my PhD that I actually was like, okay, I don't want to be controlled by this. I want to be able to, like, since my PhD, I did my PhD in LA. You know, there's a bunch of restaurants out there, so many things to do, so many places to explore. I didn't want to be controlled by a certain number and restricting like what I did and where I ate and how much I ate. So I started my recovery towards the beginning of my second year of my PhD. But also kind of what you were saying, your interest in kinesiology and how that was kind of influenced by your eating disorder. I would say like my fascination with nutrition, at least in the very beginning, was very much influenced by my eating disorder, because when you're thinking about food all the time, it's like, what else is going to be interesting? So that's pretty much like how I found the lab that I joined, and how I ended up in the path that I did. And actually, when I did start my recovery, I was still interested in nutrition and food and like what it does for your body, but at the same time as I was able to kind of feel normal in my thinking and be like, okay, like this is interesting too, like this topic is interesting too, like immunology is interesting, cancer is interesting. I don't have to just restrict myself to nutrition for the rest of my life. So I would say recovery did help me in that aspect to kind of bring me back to a normal place. So
that's amazing. And what type of things did you do to help with your recovery?
Yeah, I mean, as far as like with my recovery process, I know in the very beginning, you were mentioning like being under a certain weight. So I would say, like, without saying numbers, like I was there. So it was definitely very dangerous because I saw like some side effects that thankfully like have kind of normalized now that I'm at a normal place. But I had issues with like my bladder. I had issues. I was starting to see, you know, effects of my teeth and things like that. So it wasn't very good. But once I started my recovery process, it was pretty much focusing on the weight gain, which wasn't too hard because I think because with eating disorders, it's always about not necessarily the weight gain, it's about the mental recovery. The mental recovery is going to be the hardest. So I think I would say it took me about 3 months to get myself back to a normal weight. And then at that point, that's when the body image issues hit me. I would, you know, look at the mirror every single morning. I would just be like, oh my gosh, my thighs, they're huge. Like, why did I do this to myself? Like, I look horrible. You know, I would get a measuring tape. I would just like measure like every hip, like every part of my body, like hips, waist, anything. And so I think what helped me during my recovery process was definitely starting to see a therapist. That was like, I was like fortunate enough to be able to be in an area that had people that specialized in eating disorders. So I was able to meet with someone who kind of knew my background and like what kind of behaviors I did and why I did those things. So that was very helpful for me in my recovery process. And I would say, like, definitely, I'm also very fortunate to have a close family member, my father, who pretty much kind of really knew what was going on with me. And in the very beginning of my eating disorder and when I was in the depths of it, he didn't really understand what was going on. He kind of assumed like, you know, like, why are you not eating? Just eat, like, you know. I hinted to him many times, like, I think I have this problem. I think I have an eating disorder. And I think one of the first things he said was, oh, girls like you don't get that. And it was just kind of like a thing. I was like, oh, what do you mean girls like me don't get that? Like, are you saying like, you know, brown girls don't get this kind of thing, you know, South Asians don't get this kind of thing, which is completely like untrue. And it wasn't his fault for saying that. It's just he didn't know. But I think because I was going through that and he saw me struggling and he was hurting as well, he was patient enough with me to say, you know, what you're doing is not healthy and I don't like it, but I'm going to wait for you when you're ready. So I'm not going to push you. Like, I'm going to tell you like, hey, like, you know, this is not good. I'm going to keep reminding you that this is not good. You don't need to do this. But, you know, when you're ready, you know, I'm here basically. And so when I was in that recovery period, like, you know, I would be messaging him constantly. Like, I would still be kind of paranoid about calories and the food I was eating. So I would like send him pictures of food, like at restaurants. I'd be like, are you sure this is like 700 calories? Are you sure this is how many calories? And he would kind of calm me down and say, you know, this is what it is, but you know, you need it. It's fine. You know, you're okay. It was like that for a while. Like, I was very paranoid about calories and measurements and things like that during my recovery process. But I would say about a year and a half in, those urges to like look at myself in the mirror, those urges to figure out how many calories I ate after a meal like right away died down with time. And so now it's like, you know, I'll go out to a restaurant and I don't even care. Like, I mean, like over the years, like because we're so ingrained to know the numbers in food calories and food, like,
you would know
automatically.
me too.
Yeah, but it's like not like defining. Like, it's like, I'm like so happy, like, because I during my recovery, I also read a book about intuitive eating, and I love that concept. And it's like, I would love, like, when I was going through my recovery and very still not with my cues, I was just like, I wish I can get to a point where I can just trust my body and just let it tell me what it wants. And I feel like at this point, like, I'm pretty much at that point where I can just, you know, wake up in the morning and be like, okay, I'm not hungry for this, but I'll eat that. And it's just, and it's just really good to be in this position as far as like my eating disorder like history, because I never actually thought I would ever recover from eating disorder. I think
that's what they say.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, it's always gonna be part of you. But I would say like those urges, those thoughts, those feelings have really died down compared to where I was, I would say like 3 years ago or whatever. Let's see.
It's okay, we'll continue on. So great to hear though about that. Like it's not oh, we're back.
Yeah.
It's so great to hear that you're able to recover most of the way, because it is a very difficult thing to do, because it's really in the mind. And the fact that you actually was aware enough that you have an issue, face it, address it, and actually seek out the therapist. Right, like that action alone, like I definitely have to like commend you for that, because I think if you're able to actually take yourself to that point, then it's a matter of time. Like your father said, it just takes patience for you to get there. So I think right now, just encouraging that people that this is actually more common than we think. A lot of times we're just hiding it in the background because we feel shame for sharing this type of stories. But I know enough people that have battled, maybe not an eating disorder, but at least with some kind of body image issues, no matter what you look like now. Because a lot of people would assume, okay, I look rather fit, I must have no issue with weight at all. But trust me, I've battled for a very long time to get to where I am today. And that's why I just want to share with you all like the authentic process, because it's not, it could seem like, you know, on Instagram and things like that, we always look flawless or, you know, perfect, but in reality, it's not. So I just want to hopefully inspire other people to understand that this is a process and it's okay. And there are still moments that I still get triggered as well. My specific trigger is when I get bloated. Then I would actually want to binge. Because that's what I used to do back in the day, where it's like the binge eating disorder. It's like it's like a thing that I cannot stop myself from doing. The more I eat, the more shame and guilt I feel, and then the more I want to get rid of that feeling. So let's just have more junk foods to override that discomfort or disgust of myself, and it becomes a cycle, right? And then I would starve the next day. Then hopefully that bloating would go away. But then when it comes back, then I want to binge again. So once in a while, I'll still feel that, but being aware of that specific pattern, then you can use other tools to navigate around that emotion, right? Like for example, for me, I would meditate or sing. Those are two things that really take me away from the moment. Not to say that it's 100% that it works, but then, like you said, it's a process, and that's okay. As long as you're, you know, working towards it, I think that's the most important part. Exactly. I mean, with a lot of societal pressure, it doesn't help as well. And in the younger generation, like you grew up with Instagram, where everything looks so perfect, and that definitely contribute to it as well.
Right.
And so with we'll just talk about like cultural, I guess, ideals. So in terms of the South Asian culture, what type of ideals do they put on women? Like what is considered beautiful?
Yeah, I mean, it really honestly depends on, like, because like if we're talking about India, for example, that country is like, you know, the second most populated country in the world, and there's so many regions, so many different subcultural norms and ideals. But I think just kind of talking or not really talking, but just kind of hearing about what my cousins or aunts or kind of within my family, what has been seen as beautiful or what has been seen as ideal. Definitely a very trim body, a very slim body. A lot of I mean, it was never like you never really hear about women exercising, at least in their generation. You never, so all the pictures I've seen of them, they were all very young, in their early 20s, very, very trim, very slim. I think my mom, when she was around my age, she was like 10 pounds like lighter than I am right now. And I look at her and, like in that photo, and I'm just like, oh, okay. I mean, maybe it's a genetic thing, but it was just like, that was just kind of the natural look. And then as women get older, just kind of depending on their lifestyle, since exercise isn't really emphasized, especially with Desi women, a lot of older women tend to put on weight, and so it's kind of seen as normal. But I think a lot of the emphasis on beauty is placed on skin color. And I think right now, especially within the Instagram community and social media community, you're seeing a lot of like upheaval about colorism, and you're seeing a lot of people going against the whole Fair and Lovely products and company, and kind of saying, you know, dark is beautiful, like it's not something to be ashamed of. I think there was like one kind of controversial thing that happened recently about, I think in Bollywood, there was a song about Beyonce and how, I guess some character was singing in the song, oh, you know, your skin is so light, Beyonce would be jealous, or something like that. And it was just a huge outcry among all the South Asians on Instagram. I was like, I was seeing all these posts. I was like, oh my gosh, Bollywood. Oh my gosh, what are you doing? But it's definitely, I would say colorism is definitely a big aspect of that. Because as far as like body like shape, you see a lot of Bollywood actresses, and they're not all like straight, skinny, thin. There's a lot of women that are curvy. There's a lot of women that have a lot of not a lot. I mean, there's a lot of women that have like, you can see that they have like a healthy amount of body fat, curves. So I would say, as far as like ideals and expectations, it's very diverse, except when it comes to colorism. I think lighter is always seen as more like kind of like elite in a way.
Yeah. And I think that's very similar in the East Asian narrative as well. It just because, at least back in the day in history, where the farmers are the ones who's out in the sun, and that's why they have like darker skin. But the people who, you know, maintain their more pale complexion then are seen to be more indoors, and hence the narrative of them being more elite. I think that's kind of like something that was never taken away from our societal ideals. But interestingly, the opposite is true in North America. Where they want you to be tanned, because it's the opposite. You always want the opposite of what you don't have, right? So it's very interesting. And how do you navigate that? Like, you know, kind of straddling between the two, and celebrating, I guess, yourself for who you are. Is there any conflict that you have been dealing with in the past with the two sets of ideals?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think like my eating disorder, that like the way that I thought beauty was being seen was definitely the whole straight, skinny, thin girl. Because when I was going through puberty, like I wasn't like very curvy, but I definitely did develop hips and thighs, and like, you know, towards the beginning of high school. And, you know, I would see all these girls around me, and they hadn't hit puberty yet, and they could still fit into these like size 0, like Hollister jeans. I was just like, oh my gosh, like, why can't I be like that? Like, that was like my like ideal, even though it shouldn't have been. Like, I should have, you know, not been thinking like that, but you know, I didn't really have anyone to tell me one or another. Yeah, exactly. So I would say like my obsession with my hips and my thighs, and trying to want to control that and make that smaller, was definitely influenced by the kind of like the kind of what we were seeing in the late 2000s, I guess, which was definitely this whole idea of being very stickly, like skinny.
Yeah, no, that's very similar to like our experience for sure. I think that's just actually the entire world. In a way. I mean, of course, there's some more celebration of different sizes and shapes in specific cultures, but at least I find in my experience, North America and Asia in general, that they really celebrate or honor, or not honor, but like they really want you to be a certain size, and to be looking a certain way. But it's interesting that you also talk about exercise too. It's like, in Asian culture, they don't exercise, right? Like, I mean, at least like back in the day, they don't really, you know, kind of think that's a good thing. But then they also expect you to look a certain way. So it's very contradictory. And food is also a love language. So how do you eat a lot, not exercise, and still look skinny? Like, that's actually not really realistic if you think about it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that's why like it kind of comes down to like, okay, so how are they so skinny at such a young age? And it probably comes down to metabolism, if they weren't even exercising or anything. But at the same time, you go back to older generations, and then at least in the South Asian women group, a lot of women, especially in the villages, they were working every single day. Like, so it kind of makes sense. But I think kind of like going towards the future in the more modern age, yeah, it's not gonna balance out.
Yeah, yeah, calories in versus calories out, right?
Yeah.
Even the formula doesn't equal each
Yeah.
other. So yeah, it's very interesting where we are expected to eat a lot, not exercise and still look a certain way. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, we go to hang out with our North American friends, the Caucasian friends, and then they think you're skinny. And so
Mhm.
then it's like, who are you to complain about your weight?
Mhm.
And so I think that's something that I had to deal with a lot as well. It's like, well, you're skinny, you don't have problems, or you must eat salads all day, or you're like, by the way,
Mhm.
I don't like eating cold salads, and then I stir fry them. But I think like there's a lot of stereotypes that people put on you, but you're like, you can win either way. Because
Mhm.
you're like, okay, you don't want to, I guess, seem well. I mean, okay, let me backtrack a little bit, because the clothing sizes are very small in Asia, right?
Mhm.
At least in East Asia. So,
Mhm.
and they're very blunt about it too. And so, like, I might be still small, but then like towards medium type of thing. But I would be like a 0, 0, like very extra small here, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like that different standard of, okay, you're back in North America saying that, okay, you're too skinny, but then you go home and like, okay, maybe you can lose a few
Mhm.
pounds. It's like, okay, which one do I listen to?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've always hated that. I mean, I think with India, like when we went back and went shopping, it really like I think like how brands in the US and North America, it's like there's always like some variability in
Yes.
numbers and everything. I would say it's like even worse in India. Like
Oh,
I
really?
think I have like a top that's like, like one size, and then I have a dress that's like two sizes larger, and I'm like, they're the same measurements. Like,
Yeah.
what is this? So, and even though it shouldn't, you shouldn't really look at the tag and like be upset by it. Like you do see it and you're like, wait, what? Like, am I really this? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
so.
And yeah, it's true. And it really kind of plays with your head.
Mhm.
And a lot of people are saying, oh, I have to get to this size, this number. But it's true. Like every company makes dresses in different sizes. European sizes are different. North American sizes are different. Asian sizes are different. So we should not be defined by a number, right?
Yeah.
Or a certain look. And genetically, everyone is different in the
Mhm.
way they distribute fat or muscle percentages in their body. So
Mhm.
certain people who look like very stickly, it might actually not be in your genetic favor to look like that. Like
Mhm.
your perfect body might be completely different from
Yeah.
that person.
Yeah.
And a skinny person also doesn't mean they're healthy.
Mhm.
And
Exactly.
and it also doesn't mean that they're lean either, because
Mhm.
a lot of people are just looking at their numbers on the scale versus your fat percentage. That's actually the measurement of how much fat is in your body. Again, it's more for a health reason. So, like for me specifically, sometimes I would still weigh the same, but lost
Mhm.
a lot of muscle. And then
Yeah.
my fat percentage would go up a lot. Not to say that like it's a huge problem, because I'm still in the more kind of, not underweight, but like below average weight range.
Mhm.
Uh, but then up to a certain point, I actually get injured really easily
Mhm.
because of the loss of muscles.
Right.
So then is it healthy?
Yeah, it's like
Right. And so it's another thing to consider. And because a lot of times the standard of beauty or the symbol of beauty technically is we want to be healthy.
Mhm.
Right. And in terms of evolution, guys, or they look for a certain shape of a woman because of, or they're attracted to a certain type because of potentially their health. And then
Mhm.
they can co-create for a healthier baby. And that's happening unconsciously. Right.
Mhm.
But nowadays with the societal expectation, it's kind of flipping it backwards.
Yeah.
And there's many layers that we should consider. So
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
great. Thank you so much. I think that was a really good conversation.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people have, in terms of like the different nuances in terms of our own culture as
Mhm.
well, and the things, I guess, the pressure that sometimes we have to face from both ends. So I
Yeah.
hopefully the audience can take away that you're not alone, and it doesn't matter what size you are or which culture you are, as long as you are taking care of yourself, you know, and love yourself for who you are. That's all that matters. So I think at the end of the day, that's the message.
Yeah.
And it does take time, and that's okay. You don't have to love yourself now. It took you how many years to get all those limiting beliefs, and it takes time to undo them too. So
yeah,
And so
exactly.
where can the audience find you?
Yeah, so yeah. So I'm actually pretty active on Instagram. So my handle is just second gen Daisy, DESI, all one word on Instagram. And then I also have a blog, secondgendaisy.com. So basically my Instagram account, I try to talk about like, you know, experiences of my life as a second gen, but also like kind of my life in Milan, kind of my thoughts and observations about my experiences. And then on the blog, I try to go into more detail about those specific topics. So right now there's a lot of posts about the second gen Daisy experience and a lot of South Asian issues and topics that I've dealt with in my life, as well as some posts related to travel, animals. Yeah, so like a lot of my passions as well. Yeah, so you can find me in those places.
Yeah, it's amazing. Thank you so much. I just typed in the comments her information, so you go follow her there. And I will also type in the Instagram later on for the replay, so you can watch it again if you want to. And thank you so much again,
Thank
Pree, for
you.
your time. And because I know it's nighttime, so it's dinner time for you.
Oh yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And we'll definitely have another conversation, because it's so great to have that like exchange of like, even within the Asia diaspora, there are so many nuances with different cultures. So it's so great to be able to collaborate.
Yeah, this is so awesome.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Bye, guys. We'll talk to you later. If you have any questions, let us know.